Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
I am a medical equipment repair technician and a successful mystery writer. My mysteries always involve medical themes and settings. I was gathering background information for my next book and repairing a sterilizer at Metro Hospital when my company cell phone buzzed. "Hello, Emily. What's going on?" I asked. "I just got a call from the hospital. Your son is in the ER, and you are to get there ASAP," Emily told me. I could not get any details, but they said that he is in the ER of Metro. "Thanks, Emily. I'm already there. I need to replace a couple of covers on this sterilizer, and I'll go to the ER. If they call back, tell them 10 minutes. When I got to the ER, I was directed to billing. That wasn't going to work, so I asked for the ER department manager. After waiting for a couple of minutes, a nice-looking young lady came up to me and introduced herself. "I'm Lila Jacobs, ER supervisor. Can you tell me what is the problem?" "Yes, I can. I received a call from my office stating that I urgently needed to get to the ER to check on my son, who was injured and being treated here. When I arrived, I was directed to billing. If it was so urgent, why can't billing wait? Now, you have two choices: let me go to my son, or answer in court for a false emergency call. Which is it going to be? The clock is running, so what is it going to be?" "Mister, I did not get your name. You need to calm." "Mr. Cole, and I do not need to calm down. Your hospital called my office, who then called me and said it was urgent. So take me to my son now. I'll take you back there now, and I am sorry for the seeming lack of compassion," Ms. Jacobs said. When we got there, the doctors were working on the scrapes and cuts as well as ordering up some of the tests that they were going to do. Ethan looked terrible and was unconscious. I could see scrapes and cuts on his face and shoulder. The nurses and the rest of the team that was in there were cleaning and irrigating the other wounds. The head of the treatment team pulled me outside of the treatment area and gave me as much information as they could on my son's injuries. Ethan had been riding home from school when a dog ran in front of his bike, and he crashed while trying to avoid the dog. He apparently hit a brick and concrete wall when his bike flipped on the curbing. The injuries were extensive, but most were superficial. He was wearing a helmet, so while he suffered a concussion and was unconscious, there appeared to be no lasting brain damage. The cuts, scrapes, and road rash were just going to need time to heal. He also had a broken wrist, sprained ankle, and a dislocated shoulder. This main concern was that the handlebar of the bike struck him in the kidney area, and there appeared to be some reduction in kidney function. The doctor said that they needed to be prepared to do a kidney transplant if the kidney function did not improve after a few days. Because of that possibility, they needed to test me for a tissue match. Of course, the first question was, when can I do this? "As soon as possible," the doctor said. "We are admitting your son for observation. So if you can do the testing today, we can be prepared if the operation is needed. We are keeping your son sedated until the swelling in his brain is reduced. The other injuries will be treated here in the ER before we move him to intensive care." "Okay, now that I know what is going on with Ethan, let's go see billing." "Doctor, would you set up the test?" That day, I was put in a bed next to Ethan. The tests were going to be done in the morning, but I was required to fast before the tests. They wanted me in the hospital, so if the surgery was necessary, I would be right there. Well, imagine my surprise and anger when I was told that they needed to find Ethan's biological father. It seems that not only was I not a match, but I wasn't his sperm donor either. Someone was in big trouble. I am Mason Cole. Lila Harper and I were high school sweethearts. I was a little on the skinny side at 5 feet 10 inches and 135, so I was a runner, not a football star. I was the city champion at the 4-mile cross-country distance and the 1-mile track distance. If you have never run competitively, Lila was like me, a bookworm. We were both in AP classes. I also studied several of the jock and grease monkey courses, so I knew how to and enjoyed fixing machinery. I was a junior and Lila a sophomore when we met at an athletic tutoring session. We were tasked with taking roided up, stupid a-holes and showing them how to pass their classes. They were so bad, one of them was close to failing gym. We managed to talk while we were there and found mutual interests in books. I liked almost every kind of fiction from Dumas to Louis L'Amour. We started dating and swapping books all through that year. I took her to the prom. She was absolutely beautiful. I had a very large trust fund from my maternal grandmother, so I had a nice allowance, and we went all out. You know, limo, upscale restaurant, hotel suite, the whole 9 yards. When we got to the dance, we were teased by a couple of the resident bullies, and Lila was bums rushed to leave me. But the jocks put a stop to it immediately. They understood that they needed to protect Lila, or we would not help them to stay eligible. We had a grand time, and after the dance, we had sex. I would like to say that I was magnificent, but the first time I was a 10-second wonder. Fortunately, Lila was too, and she calmed me down by saying, "Darling, we have all night." We will discover together what works for us. Just relax and it will be great. I haven't said it before, but I love you. Someday we will be man and wife. I promise. Boy, if that doesn't inflate your ego, and your appendage too. We did not get a lot of sleep, but for a virgin and an innocent, she took me around the world. Anal was something that she had read about, and even had brought some Astroglide. She loved it. I enjoyed it. But I really liked to share our mutual oral talents. I graduated and had enough credits that I entered college as a sophomore. Lila took her last required subject, tested out of her senior year, and joined me as a freshman at the same college. The little smarty pants then proceeded to test out of all of the freshman required subjects and joined in most of my classes. My major was English literature and composition. Hers was secondary education and an English minor. I was going to write the great American novel she wanted to teach, Mama's Little Angels. We flew through college and were apart only while she was student teaching. On our mutual graduation day, I gave her an engagement ring. She accepted, and we started planning our wedding. As I had access to my entire trust now that I was 21, money was not a problem. What was a problem, though, was that Lila was not comfortable with me paying for everything. She too had a trust, but not nearly as large as mine, and she could only draw an allowance until she got married or turned 25, whichever came first. Lila wanted a 50-50 budget, and then before we got married, an ironclad prenuptial agreement. I agreed, but secretly purchased an elaborate honeymoon to Tahiti and Australia. Lila had a passport, and so did I, so I never told her about the trip until we got to the airport. We were in first class and got toasted by the others there. It was a glorious 3 weeks. When we returned, we moved into my grandmother's house. It had been brought up to date, and Lila furnished it. She surprisingly kept all of the antiques and only updated the kitchen, bathrooms, and laundry room. Lila found a teaching position at an all-girls high school in the suburbs. I started writing. My first book was published just as Lila completed her master's degree. We celebrated by going on an Alaskan cruise that summer. While on the cruise, Lila told me she was pregnant. I was not surprised. She had gone off birth control and was in our bed every night. And I was at that time a horny goat. 4 or 5 times a week was normal. Ethan was born during Christmas vacation, a healthy 8 pounds, 4 ounces bundle of a crying boy. Something happened to Lila, and the doctors performed an emergency hysterectomy. Ethan was all we would ever have. Writing did not take up all of my time, so I got a job as a medical equipment repair tech. Fast forward to the test results reveal, Lila wasn't there, but I was in a calm rage. The only good that came of that day was Ethan's kidney function returned to normal. He was also allowed to slowly come out from under the sedation. Lila showed up, and the doctor told her about Ethan. At my request, he did not say anything about my test results. I left the hospital and drove home, and packed enough clothes to last me a week or two. I rented an extended stay suite and turned my phone off. I needed to think. I was gone about a week when I turned my phone back on. There were over 50 calls from Lila. There were more than 10 from my agent, and even 8 from my publisher. I started listening to the agent's calls and heard that Lila was calling him to try and find me. The same was from my publisher. I called them both back and told them I was all right, but going through a crisis at home. I deleted all of Lila's calls because I was sure that they pertained to finding me. I drove home that same day and was greeted by several police cars at the house. It seems Lila turned in a missing persons report, and the cops got the hospital information and thought Lila may have had a part in my disappearance. When I walked in the door, Lila broke down and rushed to hug me. I stepped aside and pushed her away. "When were you ever going to tell me?" I asked with a cold voice. Lila looked like I had slapped her. "What do you mean? Tell you? Tell you what? When were you going to tell me who Ethan's sperm donor was? I won't call him a father because he has never, at least as far as I know, been a part of his son's life." Lila just collapsed and started bawling. I went over to the police officer in charge and explained what happened and said I would come down to the station in the morning to clear everything up. I then picked Lila up and carried her into the master bedroom. Then I took the rest of my clothes and moved them to the other side of the house into the guest suite. Lila never moved while I was doing that. She finally fell asleep. I went to bed and in the morning went to the police station and explained where I had been. They were pissed at Lila but realized that she did not do anything wrong when she filed the missing persons report. To say things were frosty in the house would be understating the obvious. Lila was constantly checking me out. She acted like at any second I was going to strike her. After 2 days of walking on the thin ice at home, I exploded. "Well, bitch, are you going to tell me who you screwed to produce your son? I would also like to know how you managed it when you only went to school, the library, and slept in our marriage bed every night. It sure as hell wasn't an immaculate conception, because the compatibility test showed male chromosomes, just not mine." Answer me, bitch. Lila was by this time crying again. She sobbed. I'm sorry, I didn't know he wasn't yours. I was only with the professor one time when I told you I was in the library. So, it was only one time, was it? Did I get sloppy seconds that night? Did I suck out his juice when you got back home? Answer me, bitch. Lila ran out of the kitchen and closed the bedroom door. I decided to do what I do best. I wrote, Lila, this is to inform you that we will be getting a divorce for sure if you don't answer all of my questions. We may be going that way even when I get the answers, but I will get the answers. 1. Who is Ethan's biological father? 2. How long did your cheating go on while you were supposedly studying for that goddamned master's? 3. Was the sex totally consensual? 4. When were you going to tell me if ever? Your, who always has been, faithful husband, Mason Cole. P.S. I will enforce the prenup if we divorce, so you might want to investigate where you will live if and when that happens. This is my house. Lila was up and around the next day. The note was gone. She acted as if it had never been read. Stop, I screamed. I know you read that note. You have 5 minutes to answer those questions, or you are out of here. Do you understand? She sat down, took the note out of the housecoat pocket, and looked at it. I'm so sorry, Mason. Professor Victor Hayes must be the father. It went on from the second class. He accused me of plagiarism and said if I didn't sleep with him until I got my degree, he would expose me. It turns out I quoted something without attribution and he caught it. I forgot all about going off the BC pills. When I got pregnant, I was so sure it was yours that I told the professor that we were done, and if he complained I would report him. He would have lost his job and his teaching credentials. He left me alone after that. So, you never thought to come to me and tell me that that slimeball was blackmailing you? I was afraid, and I thought he would stop me from getting my degree that I worked so hard for. So, you thought more of your precious degree than your forgotten marriage. Is that it? I was scared. Now I am terrified that you are going to do something stupid and I will lose you. I am going to do something. I'm going to sue the scumsucker for back child support and make sure that he never teaches again. I will spend every dime I have after our divorce to wreck him. Our divorce. You said that you might not if you got the answers. That is true, except you forgot the lie. When I first asked you, you said it was only one time. Now you are saying that it went on almost the whole semester. You do realize that if it had been only one time, that first time, you would not have gotten pregnant with his baby, don't you? Please, Mason, I'll do anything. Anything to stay married to you. Will you lie to me like you have been doing all these years? She recoiled as if struck. My God, I have been. Haven't I? Can I please stay until Ethan is released? I'm not going to kick you out, but once all of his damage is fixed, I expect you to take your son and leave. Do you understand? Yes. Ethan came home, and I watched his confusion as I was on one side of the house and Lila was on the other. Finally, on a good day, when he was not hurting, he asked, Dad, what is wrong? Are you mad at me? Are you and Mom fighting about something? Is it something I did? I choked up. I yelled as I grabbed him in a hug. Lila, get your butt down here right now. I was loud, not angry. I sat on the couch, staring at Ethan, his confused expression making my chest tighten. He had no idea what was really going on, and it was breaking my heart. He was finally on the mend after all his injuries, physically at least, but the emotional wounds were just beginning to open. Ethan, I said, trying to steady my voice. There's something I need to tell you. Something about your mom and me. He looked at me, clearly concerned, but not yet understanding the depth of what I was about to say. Dad, what's wrong? Are you mad at me? Are you and Mom fighting about something? Is it something I did? I choked back tears. My son, my kid, the one person I never wanted to hurt, had just asked the question that had been haunting me. No, Ethan, this isn't about you. You didn't do anything wrong. This is about your mother and me. Lila had already been notified to come down. I was loud, but I wasn't angry, just desperate for her to be present as I explained what had been going on behind closed doors. I didn't want to keep secrets anymore. The lies had been building for so long that I couldn't hold them in any longer. Lila appeared, looking frail, like someone who knew what was coming. Her face was pale, her eyes red from crying, but I couldn't find it in me to feel sorry for her anymore. Not after everything she'd put me through, not after the truth came out. I turned to Ethan, my heart breaking even further as I prepared to tell him about his mother's affair. Ethan, I want you to listen to me carefully. Your mom, she lied to both of us. She told me that you were mine, but Ethan, you're not my biological son. The words hung in the air like a heavy weight, and I could see the confusion and hurt on Ethan's face. He looked from me to Lila, trying to make sense of it all. His voice cracked as he asked, "What do you mean? Who is my real dad?" Lila started to speak, but I held up my hand. This was my moment to set things straight. I didn't want her making excuses, not now. I turned back to Ethan, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Your real father is Professor Victor Hayes. He's the one who got your mom pregnant. She lied about everything, about how it happened, when it happened, and who was involved." Ethan's face turned a shade of red I'd never seen before. His hands clenched into fists, and I could see the anger boiling inside him. The betrayal of finding out that the man he thought was his father wasn't. That hurt me more than anything. "Mom?" he asked, his voice full of rage and disbelief. "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me the truth?" Lila tried to speak, but she was shaking, barely able to get the words out. "Ethan, I didn't want to lose you. I thought I could keep it from you, but I see now that was wrong. I'm so sorry." Her words were empty to me, and I could tell they were just as hollow to Ethan. He stood up, his fists trembling, and for a second, I thought he might lash out. "You lied to me, Mom. You lied to both of us. I don't even know who you are anymore." Lila collapsed into tears, but it didn't move Ethan. He turned to me, eyes filled with hurt. "Dad, why didn't you tell me sooner? Why didn't you say something?" I grabbed his shoulders, trying to steady him, trying to calm him down. "Ethan, I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to destroy everything we had. But you deserve the truth." He shook his head, looking between Lila and me. "I can't believe this. I can't believe you would do this to me, to us." The anger, the disappointment, the betrayal. It was all in his eyes. And I didn't blame him. I couldn't. Later that day, I filed for divorce. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. Lila had betrayed me, and while I still cared for her, I couldn't stay in a marriage built on lies. We had been living in separate rooms for days now, and that was no way to live. It wasn't fair to Ethan, and it wasn't fair to me. I asked for joint custody, because as much as Lila had hurt me, I couldn't let her walk away from our son without fighting for him. She agreed, but it was clear the weight of it all was too much for her to bear. As the days went on, Lila slipped deeper into depression. I couldn't watch it happen, not when I knew what she had done, but I still felt a part of me wanted to help her. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was still a person in there, somewhere, the person I had once loved. But it didn't matter anymore. The damage was done. Victor Hayes was sued, and I didn't stop until he paid for the harm he caused. I went after him for back child support, for the emotional distress he caused both me and Ethan. He lost everything, his job, his reputation, his standing in the academic world. But it didn't end there. As he was leaving the university one day, some students who had caught wind of what he'd done confronted him outside. What happened next didn't surprise me. They beat him up, and I wasn't sorry for it. He deserved everything that came his way. As for me, I was moving on. I bought 2 dogs, German Shepherds, strong, loyal, and protective. They were there for me when I needed them, giving me something to focus on, something to love. I spent more time writing, finally able to channel all my pain, anger, and confusion into my work. Writing was my therapy. It was my way of working through everything, of finding peace in a world that had turned upside down. I was happy, or at least as happy as I could be. I wasn't going to let the past define me. I wasn't going to let it destroy me. I had to keep moving forward, for Ethan, for myself, and for the future I was going to build. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.